Hi, everyone. Welcome. Um, my name is Jessica Munger, and tonight we're going to be talking about Action in a Box, the 28th Amendment Tour, which is a new and exciting project that we at Move to Amend have been working on with our friends at the Backbone Campaign. So first I'll introduce the others who are going to be speaking tonight. I've got my friend Daniel Lee from the Move to Amend leadership team. Do you want to say hello, Daniel?
Sure. This is Daniel in Los Angeles. Happy to be here. And yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Daniel. And we've got Eric Ross from Backbone Campaign.
Hey y'all, this is Eric Ross. I'm the organizing director with the Backbone Campaign, calling in from Vashon Island, Washington.
Great, thanks Eric and Daniel. And this is Jessica Munger. I'm the program coordinator at Move to Amend, and I work out of our Sacramento office. So let's see. First thing is just to be sure that everyone is hearing us and that you're seeing the slides. So if you can hear me and everything is working right for you now, would you mind typing a little note here in the chat bar so we know everything's good to go? Great, thank you so much. Okay, and if you do experience any technical difficulties, you can try to type your questions here, although we may not be able to answer them while we're in the webinar. But there's also a support email that you can use that's listed here on this page. Okay, so our agenda tonight, we're going to do a quick overview of Move to Amend in case anyone on the webinar tonight is new or needs a refresher about the work that we do. Then we're going to talk a bit about movement history and the current moment we find ourselves in, and how all of that is related to the tactics that we're going to be talking about tonight, which will lead us into some context for creative action, a little bit of background, why it's important, and what you can do. And that'll lead us right into the specific action campaign about action in a box. And then we'll talk about what the arc of this is going to be. This is one of the first times we've really done a formal campaign like this. And so we have an idea of kind of where we want this to go. So we'll talk to you a little bit about that, and then we'll have room for question and answers. Okay, so a little bit about Move to Amend. Move to Amend is a coalition of hundreds of organizations and hundreds of thousands of people committed to social and economic justice, committed to ending corporate rule, and building a vibrant democracy that is genuinely accountable to the people and not to corporate interests. So Move to Amend was founded by just about 12 people here in California who came together to talk about what to do about the Citizens United decision that was about to come down, and knowing that it was going to have major consequences. And so they thought, maybe a solution to this would be to see who's interested in working on this issue around a constitutional amendment, which is really the systemic way to deal with this problem. And so they put up a web page and crashed the site overnight. So many people were interested. So that's where we are directed by, and this is the work that we're committed to in the world in a general sense. So specifically, the goals of Move to Amend are to pass the We the People Amendment to make clear that artificial entities do not have constitutional rights and that money is not speech. Currently, we have a bill that's in the House, HJR 48, and that's the text of our specific amendment that you can find on movetoamend.org if you haven't seen it already. However, our other goal, really, that's related to this specific amendment is to provoke discussion and organizing about how to make real the promise of American democracy through constitutional renewal. So really, a lot of our work is about movement building and doing education about the dangers of corporate power and what we can do as grassroots organizers to really bring about a vibrant democracy where everyone is included and has their voices heard. So about our principles and values, Move to Amend centralizes anti-oppression and solidarity organizing. This means that we really prioritize working with groups who are most affected by corporate rule, who are on the front lines in their communities and dealing with the the brunt of the problem. Corporate rule affects everybody, and as well as the planet we live on. But some of us are more directly affected. And so we really value working in solidarity with other groups. And that's similar to our value of coalition and movement building. So we know that we've taken on a really mighty task and that it's really hard. And so we know that we need to be operating in coalition with other groups who are on the same page as us about the problems that we're facing and our strategy. And we're much more powerful when we work as a movement. And so a lot of our work has to do with movement building and community building. And that, of course, happens most effectively from the grassroots. So we really value grassroots organizing. So we at National Move to Amend, our job is really to support the grassroots organizers who are working in their own communities to educate, to organize and pass resolutions at varying levels, to talk to folks about how their issues intersect with corporate power, and really to build that political muscle in their own communities, so that we have a really strong movement as we take on major opposition. We also have a dedication to political education, because we know that a lot of people for a long time have fought against corporate power, and we know that change comes from movements, and so we take it upon ourselves to study past movements and learn from them, and to also study the current moment and the history that led us to where we are in general, and that informs the work that we do every day. We also have a value of political and economic independence. So Move to Amend is a nonpartisan organization. We don't endorse candidates or parties, and we know that in order to be true to our goals and values, that we have to maintain that independence, so that our agenda is not controlled from foundation money or other large donors or something who might have an objective. So that's really important to the work that we do. Okay, so now I'm going to hand it over to Daniel to talk to you a little bit about movement history and the current moment.
Thanks, Jessica. And I'm just going to talk briefly. I know a lot of people probably know some of the things I'm going to say, but I just wanted to ground us into just sort of the history of the effectiveness of direct action as a means of fulfilling certain objectives. This past week, I think, 2 days ago, I think we were all very enthused and happy when the Army Corps of Engineers finally decided to deny the easement for the Dakota Access Pipeline and sent it back for further study. There was a lot of celebration. It was a pretty huge win because the Standing Rock Sioux and other tribes and allies have been protesting in North Dakota since April, with little or no movement from the current administration, the Obama administration, and very few comments from the candidates who were running for president. So it was a big win. But I put up the picture of Selma from 1965, contrasted with Standing Rock in 2016, to just pound home the point that direct action ultimately can be an effective tool to get certain campaign objectives or just literally physical objectives achieved. And at this point, with Move to Amend, we're not there, but we think we need to be able to see that in the future if we really want to win. At some point, either locally or nationally, we need to get into both creative actions and possibly real, true direct action and civil disobedience. One of the other things that I wanted to just briefly mention was the lunch counter sit-ins that happened during the civil rights movement. I had the opportunity to go to the James Lawson Institute in Tennessee a few years ago, where Reverend Lawson, who was a contemporary of Martin Luther King Jr., the institute was named in his honor, but we studied for about 8 days just sort of the history of direct action and how a lot of the actions, specifically the lunch counter sit-ins, they weren't their overall objective was not to integrate lunch counters. Their overall objective was to end segregation. And a lot of times I feel like people think, wow, you want to amend the Constitution? That's big. How are you going to do that? We got to have I don't want to use the phrase, but I will. We have to have a diversity of tactics that, include lobbying our elected representatives or replacing our elected representatives, doing our resolution and ballot initiatives, but should also include creative actions that raise the profile of what we're trying to do and educate people. The last thing I will say is, one of the last things I'll say is the picture I included here of Standing Rock, where protesters are being shot with a water hose. I was actually looking for a different meme picture that had this water hose shot contrasted with the water hoses that were frequently used in the civil rights movement. But I put those up just to show that if we get to the point, and I believe we will, where we are ultimately successful and we're changing people's minds and we're putting our body on the line, and something like amending the Constitution sounds like what people really want to do, there will be organized opposition. There always is. And we need to be prepared for that. But we need to really think of direct action as not just something that happens as a reaction. Like as a reaction, recently we've seen a lot of freeways get shut down in terms of like Black Lives Matter when someone gets shot, which happens all too often in this country. We've seen people tie themselves to machinery in North Dakota to stop the Dakota Access Pipeline, but all of those are reactionary. We should think of direct action as a building tool that can take us and help us get to our ultimate objectives. In 2012, Move to Amend, early 2012, Move to Amend did occupy the courts. We're in over 100 places across the country. We held protest actions, and that was really our largest sort of semi-creative action to date. A few years later, using some materials provided by the Backbone campaign, we organized nationwide banner drops on the anniversary of the Santa Clara County decision in May. We need to get back to that level and go beyond because the stakes are higher right now. Whether we are a nonpartisan organization, but we do know with Trump and his corporate ties that a lot of things are accelerating. The economic inequality and frankly the march towards what more and more seems like fascism. So we need to up our game, and direct action is one of those ways that we can do it. We must make sure that we don't normalize a lot of the things that are already happening in the current administration, and we must ourselves become more visible and more active and more talkative to our friends and neighbors, but also to people that we don't know. So I just wanted to go over a little bit of how direct action has been successful in the past and the stakes right now, given our current situation. But with that, I'll hand it over to Eric to go over sort of the context for creative actions and some stories around how actions have positively influenced larger campaigns and larger objectives. Eric?
Thanks so much, Daniel. I'm really excited to hear from other folks on the call here a little bit later on during the Q&A to hear about the actions that they're doing in their communities and how they could potentially use some of the tools that we're going to be talking about tonight. First, I want to just give folks a quick intro to Backbone Campaign. So I work with Backbone Campaign. We are a progressive movement building organization. We've been active since 2004. We're best known for our artful activism, which encompasses things like spearheading kayaktivism during the Shell No campaign to stop Shell's Arctic drilling, or our Procession for the Future. It was a 120-piece puppet parade that symbolized progressive values in a visual form, as well as our Bush administration chain gang bobblehead puppets that we sent out to grassroots groups across the country. In addition to actions we organize ourselves, a bulk of our work consists of providing workshops, trainings, action design support to grassroots autonomous change agents, as well as communities and more. We work across many issues, and we have the privilege to share victory stories, hard-won lessons, and organizing best practices from many groups that we get to work with. We are especially excited to continue our work with Move to Amend through a project we'll be talking about tonight. Ending the pervasive influence of dark money in our democracy has been an integral part of our platform of issues since our very beginning. So today I want to talk about a victory story from another democracy struggle, the fight against the TPP. And we hope that this is the beginning of a series of webinars building up our skills as well as our theory of change in relation to creative direct actions. So with that, let's talk a little bit about why we do an action. So one of the most important things comes to my mind is to create a crisis that forces our target, the person that we seek to influence, to react or respond. Another great reason to do an action is to upend the social programming that promotes complacency, disrupt the unjust status quo, break the rules, and for me, the foundation of this, why we do creative direct actions, is because the traditional sources of redress aren't sufficient enough by themselves to guarantee us the society that we deserve and the society that we want deep in our hearts. It's interesting, I was at the Washington State, I was a delegate for our district caucus, and they had thousands of liberals and progressives gathered in a space. But people spent most of the 12 hours that caucus lasted twiddling their thumbs. Instead, we could have used that amazing opportunity to build up grassroots leadership and stoke the passion of progressives. In our area, in addition to the indigenous leadership in our region, one of the reasons we've stopped the creation of a dangerous and dirty oil by rail infrastructure is because of sustaining the moral high ground and mobilizing people between the public hearings, the long gaps in time between public comment and opportunities. It took creativity to organize people, build leadership, enliven the passion of the larger public. We also stopped a coal export terminal. And most of these projects, it was assumed that it was inevitable that they were just going to pass. And because the traditional sources of redress didn't provide sufficient opportunities for the public to say no. And I'm probably not saying anything that's new to anyone, but we had to figure out how we organize outside those traditional sources of redress such as voting or like public comments during EIS scoping hearings and stuff like that. So moving on from there is a slide of guerrilla light projection, one of the creative tactics that we offer grassroots change agents. Another reason to take direct action is to make the invisible visible. So one of the reason for this action is to shine a light on something hidden or not yet known to the public. There are a lot of issues that we work on that have not made it to the public eye. Also, if our campaign has not made it into the mainstream's mind yet, or they don't understand what we're working on, we can plan an action to more clearly define what it is we're working on, trying to stop or expose. I think of the activists, one of our roles is the agitator. If you think of an agitator in a laundry machine, it's to break up and bring to surface the dirt that's hidden in those clothes. Well, we have to break up and bring to the surface the injustices in our society. So I want to give a little context or some examples of how we've engaged using these actions, and I'll hit a couple more points again later on why we do actions in general. I want to lift this up through some examples of the TPP and the fight for real democracy. So we first got exposed to the TPP by our friends at Popular Resistance back in 2012, and the TPP was an issue that perfectly exemplified the paradigmatic conflict that we are in, which is people's rights versus corporate rights, honoring the sacred versus the commodification of everything in our lives. And Citizens United, I think, is ending Citizens United and getting the perverse influence of money out of our democracy is hugely important campaign nationally. TPP was like the global extension for that. And it was really crucial that we engaged in this fight. So the action that you're seeing right here was out in Leesburg, Virginia. We occupied 3 roads of traffic into the TPP negotiations. One was with this banner here. It said, trading away people's lives and the planet's future, flushTheTPP.org. We were able to, these folks holding this banner were arrested for blocking the roadway, but we were able to negotiate their de-arrest because we had a tactical advantage at that moment in time, because we had erected a tripod blockade, as you see in this next slide here. The tripod blockade puts someone at the top, and they risk their harm to them if they were going to be removed by the police. And so we were able to negotiate the de-arrest of those folks beforehand, pull off a great action that blocked the 5 lanes of traffic for a sustained period of time, and because we had this position of a tactical advantage. And after we successfully did a tripod blockade of the roadways, we also hoisted a 12-foot buttocks, helium-filled buttocks, that read, "Free trade my ass, flushTheTPP.org." And one of the reasons we use these creative tactics and this particular messaging was because at that time there were so many groups that were talking about, well, maybe we can negotiate for a better trade deal. They didn't think that they could ever stop it. Instead, we felt like this was an onslaught of corporate power or seizing the power and overturning democracy, sovereignty, and rights for people and the planet. And so we felt that we had to flush the TPP. We had to end the TPP altogether. And this was where we kind of launched that meme, the flush the TPP meme. So another reason for doing an action is to enhance the team spirit morale. Sometimes burnout sneaks up on us, or you have suffered a setback in your work, or it just doesn't feel like victory is in sight, or numbers are dwindling. This is a great time to do an action and make it as creative and enticing, invigorating, activating as possible. Direct action can serve to raise the spirits and renew the energy of our groups. It can also help inspire others to join our group. And direct action can be fun and help empower others to find their strength. So following our actions out in Leesburg, we had a workshop retreat with grassroots groups throughout our region, and to learn different creative tactics. They went on to take those creative tactics and form affinity groups themselves, and then they were able to mobilize actions in their local community, pressuring local targets and recruiting new members to their own groups. It wasn't enough for us to have the Washington State Free Trade Coalition, one group that was spearheading that. We really had to have affinity groups at the local level that people could more readily engage in, and then we converged for larger actions. So they did Overpass bannering, They did light projection on our Capitol and other public buildings, and a series of other creative tactics that they could more readily mobilize with their own membership. One of the most key aspects of direct action for me is escalation. We want to keep the people, the governments, the businesses we are targeting on their toes. We can't afford to get predictable, and we always want to leave room in our actions to grow and have our next move in mind. We don't want to get too big too fast in case that we burn out our group, and we always want to have a firm understanding of our target to understand the best ways to escalate and increase that pressure on our target. And in following web series, I hope we have a chance to talk a little bit more about why we pick certain targets. So I want to show, and here's another aspect around escalation. The ability to always escalate demonstrates to our target that our commitment to stick to the issue and our ability to grow. So, for example, if we've only been writing letters to our target, we can escalate by having a rally at their office. If at the last rally you had 7 people, you want the next one you come back to have 19 or something like that. However, if you don't think that our protest can have more people at it or substantially more than the last time, we need to come up with another type of creative tactic so it looks like that our efforts are not fading. And we can always bring the protest inside their offices or drop a banner or do an action at their country club or something like that. I want to show an example of a action that escalated the campaign to stop the TPP, as well as it has elements of escalation within the action itself. So as you can see in the slide, we had a work crew here that wanted to do a little remodeling in downtown D.C. So the United States Trade Representative's Office was one we had scouted for months before, and we found this unique opportunity where they were doing some construction on the outside of it. So we wanted to redecorate the facade of the USTR building with 5 different banners, some from the top of the 5-story building. It said, "Stop the TPP, corporate coup against people and the planet." We had the "Flush the TPP" toilet paper rolls hanging off of it. And Secret Service wasn't super thrilled that we were there, but we got the surprise on them. This is one of the most highly secure areas of D.C. It's directly across from the White House Executive Building. And Secret Service was quite embarrassed that we got the surprise on them. And we hadn't quite finished our deployment, though. We had 5 banners, and there was one down below that wasn't mobilized yet, and they had arrested the person that was trying to mobilize it. Well, again, we had a tactical advantage here, and the element of surprise in our favor. As you can see in this photo, there was this balcony here on the 3rd floor of the building. We had folks that had been rehearsing and doing skill building around doing blockades, and they were prepared to use a bike U-lock to lock their necks to the railing, which would require a fire rescue team to bring all their equipment up the 3 flights of stairs and use all kinds of cutters, etc., to extract those folks, and would have prolonged the protest and further embarrassed the Secret Service. So we negotiated with the Secret Service to get our final banner deployed to de-arrest the person down below if we would just get our photo and go. There's another photo from that action: democracy, not corporatocracy. And then we followed that action with a fast-track train wreck throughout the streets of D.C. We made these various trains with things, and Obama even participated in the action with us, sorta. He was the conductor at the beginning of the TPP fast-track train express. We had signs around global sweatshop, corporate injustice, privatized planet, Frankenfoods, and we took over D.C. and caused quite a commotion for over 2 hours. But no one was arrested. We held the moral high ground, and our actions were so beautiful and fun and festive that the police would have looked like real jerks if they interfered with it much more than they did. All right. One of the most important slides that I wanted to present to you all is this idea of political calculus. So often our appeals to the logic, to the reason, to morality of our targets, they go unanswered. And we have to think of other creative ways to get their attention. So our job as change agents is to change the social, political, and economic variables that exist around our target and issue. The variables are the factors our targets reflect upon in their decision-making process of whether to keep doing the bad things we'd like them to stop doing, or to direct resources to the pro-social activity we want them to support, or pass policies as well that we want them to support. Politicians are out there doing the math. They're sticking their finger in the wind to get a sense of where the wind is blowing. We are the force that can change their mind as long as we look at our work as changing those variables. We don't necessarily have to appeal to their logic or reason, and often it doesn't work. And I'm not gonna pretend that appeals to the morality are going to change them either. I want to change the circumstances around which they make their decisions. So we've done things like we continued that campaign with 9 days of action out in Salt Lake City. There was very few organizations that could respond to it. We had maybe a week and a half notice or something like that when those negotiations were announced. And we worked with the community there to do 9 days of action, from helium banner lifts, as well as a guerrilla light projection. And part of the work was to also appeal to our allies across the country. And we worked to make that as sympathetic as possible. We've done other light projections out in D.C., at the USTR Trade Representative's Office, and in other communities across the country. One thing I think is important is to pick a target that is movable, or and celebrate the heroes that have taken those positions, as well as bludgeon in the media our opponents. And that could also make the issue more toxic, that folks who are on the fence decide to go the direction that we want them to go. So we had a TPP bus that brought folks to various hearings. We had community building art builds to engage folks. We did marches with the idea of a meme that really got to the point of the issue. That TPP was betrayal. It was not just unfair or a bad agreement. Betrayal is something that hits people in the gut that many people can understand. We went to our local senators' offices, but they were on something like 15th floor, and we couldn't get through security. So we had noise brigade outside that created such a cacophony of sound that it attracted attention throughout downtown Seattle. We also hoisted a banner up to their floor so that they could see it outside, even if they couldn't see us down below. It read TPP equals betrayal. And we kept up with that theme using small imagery as well. So we had a Flush the TPP march with pitchforks and torches and TPP toilet paper rolls. And we had to come up with creative ways of making it fun, lighthearted, and engaging for the public. We also wanted to appeal to our allies across the globe, and so we created banners that used their language and issues that they cared about, and we took those to the streets of D.C. and elsewhere. And one of the pieces of work in our movement building orientation to creative direct action, which I moved to amend, is pushing forward as well, is building alliances across the movement. And then we also wanted to come up with another meme that was even more recognizable, so we created a Star Wars themed TPP Death Star, as well as the starfighter ships that were the Rebel Alliance, with messages like affordable medicine, workers' rights, internet freedom, sovereignty, food safety, and those juxtapose the Star Wars-themed Death Star. And we had opportunities for folks to participate in it by really an easy, quick way. They joined photo shoots at Actions, so they could hold speech bubbles that said, "Don't go to the dark side, stop the TPP, stand with the Rebel Alliance, stop the TPP." Other messages like, "In the battle for the fate of democracy, there's no such thing as neutral," which is a position that many of our senators and representatives were taking in relation to the TPP. And these actions took place in multiple places, and it was a tool that we could ship to other communities, much like a tool that we're going to be talking about here shortly. And eventually, we won. The victory of flushing the TPP is owed to the grassroots, and we made that issue so politically toxic that our elected officials or candidates for president, all three major candidates, Bernie Sanders, Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump, all denounced the TPP. And that's an example of what we talk about when we change those social, economic, political variables to finally win these campaigns. All right, with that, I want to pass it on. I think Daniel has some words to share around, Jessica, I'm sorry, has some words to share around how you all can use these tactics and why Move to Amend is excited about this Action in a Box toolkit we're going to be talking about here shortly.
Thank you so much, Eric. So as you can see, this is really cool. And of course, we want to be part of it, not only because, we know that we need to step up and as Daniel said, kind of diversify our tactics, but because there's a lot of new energy in Move to Amend since the election. We've noticed an uptick in petition signers and people joining meetings, and they want something to do. And they want something that uses this incredible energy that everyone's feeling right now to do something that's creative and inspiring and gets new folks out there with something concrete that they can participate in. And so this is really exciting for us for a lot of reasons. And like I said before, as we start to have conversations about more civil disobedience and direct action. And so we are excited about this joint project with Backbone Campaign called Action in a Box. So as Eric was talking about the Death Star being something that could be shipped around to different communities to use, we have an image of a giant 28th Amendment that we'll show you pictures of in a few minutes here. And what we want to do is to pack it up and ship it around on a tour to different communities who will host actions with it. What you'll receive in the mail is the image and some instructions and tips for creating an action and mobilizing, as well as some freeway signs as well to kind of expand your action that you do with the 28th Amendment. So we'll show you all of that in more detail when I hand this back. But this is what we're thinking. We'd like the 28th Amendment to do a sort of a tour. So Move to Amend is going to have a presence in DC around the inauguration, which happens to be the same weekend as the anniversary of Citizens United. So what we'd like to see is for the image to begin there in DC and be part of the march there, and then make its way through the communities where we have folks who are interested, and then eventually have it end up in Minnesota when we are there in the early summer for the Democracy Convention, and then to do an action around it at that time there. So it will have made its way, it'll be recognizable. We want to encourage a lot of, social media use, and also, we have some practice to do around capturing actions and making sure that we have, follow up with our social media after the actions that we do as well. And as Eric mentioned before, we are going to take this webinar and expand it into a series of webinars with Backbone Campaign to talk more about all of these considerations as we move into the specific campaign and into more, civil disobedience and direct action. So we're really excited about this projection, this specific project, and the relationship between our organizations, and encouraging you all to get out there and step it up in terms of creativity and and these really, really unique actions. So that's the gist, and then I will hand it back to to Eric to talk about some logistics and kind of exactly how to go about that.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jessica. So we understand that producing highly visual actions can be a little bit daunting for folks, or if you're doing it, it might be nice to have a few extra resources to mobilize in your community. And so that's our goal with partnering with Move to Amend, is to make it easier to mobilize actions, to build up your affiliate, to offer a more common theme and visuals to unite our movement in communities across the country. So I'm going to show you a couple photos of what will be included in the toolkit. The first is some LED Overpass Light Brigade panels, and they will spell end corporate rule and legalize democracy. So if you haven't seen, you've all probably have seen these photos of these tools before. The folks out in Wisconsin kind of piloted the Overpass Light Brigade, and we've had two libraries of these letters, and we're now going to make a third one that is shippable to you all. So if you look at the next slide here, here's an example of our friends at 350 Seattle utilizing the LED light panels on an overpass, spelling out Act on Climate, and they were able to reach thousands of people during rush hour on overpasses to get their message out there in a big way. We've also used these Overpass Light Brigade panels for in other venues, like in Kayaktivism, where we spell this energy without injury message in front of the refinery. So it juxtaposed what we were wanting to leave behind, a dirty oil refinery, with what we wanted to carry forward into the future, that is energy without injury to workers, people, or the planet. Additionally, the second part of this Action in a Box toolkit that we're going to make available to you all is the giant 28th Amendment banner. So here's some photos of the amendment banner in action. This was outside I believe, the Occupy the Courts gathering that Daniel mentioned a few years back. And the 28th Amendment says on it, "We hold these truths to be self-evident. Article 1, a corporation is not a person. Article 2, money is property, not speech. And Article 3, constitutional rights are for people." Down at the bottom is a feather there where people, and there's a huge section where people can sign their own name to the amendment. And it's a great way of turning our actions into more participatory events to help build our groups. Here's another photo of, I think, David Cobb outside the Occupy the Courts gathering, where that prop, as well as the protest, created a very visually captivating moment, so that media was much more enticed to come and cover those actions. So we anticipate that there's a number of different ways that you can use this toolkit that might be beneficial to your group. One is earning media attention, recruiting new members to your affiliate, raising visibility of the issue and growing our movement, putting pressure on a target, and as well as for marches, backdrops for rallies, eye-catchable visuals at outreach events, and holding larger spaces in case you want to do some sort of blockade or create a little bit of a crisis for a target. Here's some examples. The nation covered that action, the 28th Amendment unveiling at the Occupy the Courts action, and folks earned media as a result of that. folks love to sign their name to the 28th Amendment with big ostrich feather pens, and we might include some other founding fathers outfits to accompany it. And it's so great for recruiting new members to your affiliate. Kids can get involved with it as well, and it can be real silly about it. I think keeping our actions fun and lighthearted is important to get new members in. We can also raise the visibility of the issue and grow our movement. So, to help create this narrative around the we the people, uniting people around that against corporate power, we unveiled a similar prop like the 28th Amendment at the Lincoln Memorial. And then putting pressure on our targets. So there's all kinds of creative ways that you can augment the toolkit. You could just bring the prop outside your target and hold a press conference or action there at their offices, or entice people around having a city resolution in support of the 28th Amendment. Here's an example on the slide here. We had about 2 foot or so printouts of our representatives, and we had them join the protest against the TPP as Obama's motorcade passed below the overpass up above. And I believe Daniel was out there for that action, doing some internal media around that, creating a video that share with other groups. We also had them out at the convention center. Another example of bringing, even if our representatives can't come to an action in person, we can have them join the fun. As an example of the We the People or the 28th Amendment in marches, it's great for holding a lot of space there. And a backdrop for rallies. This is a fun example of where we juxtapose we the people versus we the corporations. Also a tool that you all could utilize, though they're much larger in scale than the 28th Amendment. That backdrop was the perfect thing to entice a camera to cover that rally, and the Associated Press had an article and photo out the next day with that juxtaposition right in the background of where our rally speakers were. And it's awesome for as an eye-catching visual at our outreach events. And if you have a small crowd and you want to make it appear more lively, more engaging, and that having that prop is great for kind of creating more vibrancy around the action. All right, with that, I want to pass it back to Daniel. I believe you had a few other words to say around where we folks are going from here, the evolution of our actions, etc. Daniel, you there? Daniel, you might be on mute.
Okay, this is Jessica. I imagine he will be back with us in a few, but in the meantime.
Jessica, why don't we go to some Q&A from folks, and then we can wrap it up with that follow-up with Daniel? Sure,
great idea. Okay, anybody have questions so far? A lot of good information, and thank you again, Eric, for taking us through all of that. Those are really fun to watch. So any questions about this action in a box, the plan for it, how you can get it? Feel free to type them in the comments box here, and the presenters can see your questions.
Jessica, is it also possible for us, for folks to just say their name and we could take a stack?
Unfortunately, all the participants are muted, so we can't hear the folks who are listening in. We can only see what they're typing. And
Okay.
so far, I don't see any questions, which means we were thorough. But if you think of any, oh, okay. Penny Cruz wonders, what did you mean in your intro by constitutional renewal? Um, so by constitutional renewal, we mean that the Constitution needs some work. I'm not sure exactly what context I said that in the beginning, but that's certainly a phrase that we use. So we know that the Constitution operates a lot more as a property rights document than it does a human rights document. And we also know that the Constitution, as it is the supreme law of the land, if you will, is really the only safe way to protect ourselves from the Supreme Court overturning and making decisions. So when we codify the resistance to corporate power in the Constitution, then uh, then that's the way that we can go about it in a more systemic and permanent way. And I'm getting a message here from Daniel. He just called in. So Eric, would you mind taking this second question here while I figure out what's up with Daniel?
Sure thing. So it looks like I have Skip Mendler from Honesdale, Pennsylvania. I hear you around being in a rural place, and our hope is that we have seen some folks use these in less populated areas for sure. So the Overpass Light Brigade panels, they don't have to be used strictly at overpasses. They could be used at other nighttime actions. What our goal was in this toolkit was to provide both a daytime tactic for visibility as well as a nighttime tactic for visibility. Oftentimes, actions in the wintertime take place in hours where it's nighttime. So the busy bridges, that sounds like a great place as long as it doesn't put anyone in danger. And the 28th Amendment, you can use that in a variety of different ways in your local community. So, there's some other ways that people can immediately see using this toolkit, or there's some other questions they have around mobilizing it. Our thought is that this toolkit can go right from each affiliate to the next one, and then it'll culminate after its month's tour in the Democracy Convention later in, I believe, the spring or summer. So the toolkit, I also see a question here from Joni in Delray Beach, Florida. The toolkit will include the 28th Amendment, some ostrich feather pens, and potentially some founding father costumes, as well as that Overpass Light Brigade message that says end corporate rule, legalize democracy. So no need to rely on local artistic talents, although Backbone Campaign and Move to Amend is always interested in connecting us with and networking with other artists around the country. I believe Move to Amend has a Arts and Culture Caucus, and we first proposed this idea to them, and they got really excited about it, and we wanted to expand it out to the affiliates across the country. Joni, does that answer your question? All right, I see Michael Gulliver from Reno, Nevada is asking, is it possible to get a toolkit to keep so we can continue to do actions at a specific location? Michael, initially we were hoping to pass this in maybe like 3-week intervals to each affiliate, though if folks are really excited about this is something that we can raise with the Arts and Culture Caucus of Move to Amend and Backbone. Michael, I'd love to follow up with you after this call to at some point in the next couple of days to talk a little bit more about that. Hopefully Jessica can help us get connected. Otherwise, I'm actually just going to type my Google Voice cell number in here so other folks who also have questions after the call can reach out. It's Eric Ross, and I can also be reached at eric backbonecampaign.org. I'm going to add that here to the chat box.
Okay, thank you, Eric. I just want to try this out. I think Daniel's back on the call. Want to see if that's working, and then we can take more questions after a few more slides.
Daniel, are you with us?
Huh, okay. Well, not exactly sure what to do about that. Okay,
I'll keep rolling with these questions if that's okay until we hear more from Daniel.
Excellent.
So saw Penny mentioning that the light sign doesn't say move to amend. Yeah, I do notice that, or do acknowledge that, although I think, part of the reason for using the tool is to build knowledge and visibility around the issue or the cause. So the light panel saying legalize democracy, end corporate rule is advancing some of the core message of Move to Amend itself. And one trick about that is that the panels are going to be about 2 feet high, and we'll have 2 rows to spell that message. It makes it a little bit tight to also get Move to Amend in there. Folks have definitely done that with some of the net banners that we worked with Move to Amend to mobilize in years past, and that is another tool that we'd be happy to help folks create to use more consistently in their community, and can also be rearranged to spell different messages. For this current tool, the 2 main aspects of the action box will be the 28th Amendment and the LED light panels. Jessica, I'm happy to chat with you all more around connecting it more to Move to Amend. The 28th Amendment does have Move to Amend right at the top, yeah, I can have more conversation about that in the future. Someone was asking if the presentation will be available on the Move to Amend website, and Jessica said that a number of folks who haven't made the call have been able to catch up with some of that info in the past, and so Skip, I'm pretty positive that this is going to appear on the website as well. Jessica, any word from Daniel yet?
Yeah, I'm chatting with him here. He said he was on and could hear us, but for some reason we couldn't hear him. So he is gonna try again to hang up and call back in. Should just be a minute. Sorry, y'all. And yeah, I'll confirm what Eric said. We definitely will have this posted to the website, probably tomorrow or the next day. Daniel, you want to try speaking again? Okay. Well,
for right now, one of the concrete folks can do.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Oh, Daniel, yes, we can.
Wonderful.
Okay, great, thanks. But we can continue with questions if that's cool.
Oh, no. We'd love to hear from you. I just want to let folks know that the slide that they see right now, this is the place where you can propose dates that you would like to use the Action Box Toolkit, and let us know that you're interested. It's backbonecampaign.org/28. That's 28.
And we've sent that link out to affiliates before. We'll also send it again in the follow-up to everyone who was on this webinar in an email, and we'll have it posted to the Move to Amend website. Okay, so maybe let's hand it back over to Daniel now. Really glad to have you back with us.
Hey, great, yeah. I was just gonna, I guess, wrap up if we're done with the Q&As, but just to sort of talk about the evolutionary trajectory we want people to go through in the context of creative actions to direct actions. I think for the most part, a lot of people who have been involved with Move to Amend in any shape or form really sort of started out with, either petitioning at an event or tabling somewhere. And, from there, we usually went to sometimes walking door to door if it was like a ballot initiative. Sometimes it was, holding rallies. And then from there, we went to marches, or we supported marches of our allies and things like that. But the long-term trajectory we want people to be in is to, start off with a creative action, sort of like what we're talking about right now with this 28th Amendment tour, which is very similar to Occupy the Courts, but, it's sort of connected in a campaign, which we hope will make it all around the country. But then, escalate, as Eric said, into more creative actions that, sort of tread the line in terms of risk of arrest. The initial creative actions we'd like people to be involved with, we hope will, not have any type of risk of arrest, but will draw people in because of either the creative elements that are used or, the type of event that is constructed. But beyond that, and this is one of the things that Eric and Bill and I encountered when we did the TPP action in Seattle, is the type of action that is sort of on the line where it's like it's legal, it's completely legal, but the cops will tell you that it is illegal. When President Obama was coming to his meeting in Seattle, Washington, there was a confrontation with Bill from the Backbone campaign on the Overpass, where a lot of the cops were basically trying to tell us that we had to go away, even though we knew what we were doing was completely legal. That's sort of a mid-level action. But eventually we want people to get to the point where, and this would be further down the line, where we have, more mass support, where we really just want to escalate and push and make sure that, like, our objectives are achieved. But we want people to be willing to actually risk arrest, as people do at Standing Rock right now, as people did in the Civil Rights Movement, as people did in every, great movement for change in this country's history. And that's sort of where we want people to be eventually. That's not where we think people are right now, even though myself, I'm sure Eric, maybe Jessica, and a lot of members of the national leadership team have been arrested multiple times. That's not what we're asking people to do right now, but we're asking people to sort of escalate to the point where the stakes are so high that they see that as an actual thing. And the reason we sort of want to do that is because we've seen, as Eric went over with, like, both the TPP actions and with what's happening with Standing Rock. But prior to that, when the Occupy started in 2011, people weren't talking about economic inequality. People weren't really paying attention to it. They were talking about the budget deficit and the trade deficit and things that, don't really translate to people on a day-to-day basis. People don't really understand or care about those things. But then Occupy happened, people got arrested, people got maced, people got beaten by cops, Black Lives Matter, the same thing. People in the Black community specifically, but in communities of color at large, have been talking about police brutality at least since I was born, but, maybe for the entire history of this country. But it took Black Lives Matter, putting a face on it and really taking actions that, from a traditional standpoint would be ill-advised to really, say, wait, this is an actual issue. This is an actual issue that we need to do something about. And the issue isn't just police brutality. The issue is, the dehumanization of people of color, particularly Black people, and racism. But by putting that issue, I guess, on blast, we're actually having the conversations. We're not as far as we should be in terms of actually having success, but things moved. And things moved with the climate rally in New York a year, maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago in New York, where it was the largest climate rally or the largest protest in modern history. And, you know, we signed the Paris Accord at COP21. We still have a lot to go. We have a ways to go. But these actions, these physical displays by people are what move people forward. Don't get me wrong, there was a lot of policy work, there was a lot of advocacy, there was a lot of lobbying, there was a lot of letter writing, but in general, the thing that got the most visibility was creative action. And that's what we want people to do. And that's what we want people to see as a means towards success, because in recent history, it's been successful. We can talk about, you know, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, you know, and even before then, you know, with the women's suffrage movement, you know, with the abolitionist movement, those creative actions were successful. But we don't need to go that far back, because we've seen success in the last 5 to 7 years. And that's the type of success that we want to build on. In fact, those movements are the movements that we want to bring in to Move to Amend, so that we can have larger displays of civil disobedience that say that we want a real democracy in this country. And that's where we want people to go. And with the success of things like stopping the TPP, and for the moment, stopping the route of the Dakota Access Pipeline, we know that it is possible. So we just wanted to end with, you know, this is not rocket science. This works. And this is what we need to do. This is just a start, and we know we have a long way to go in order to be successful. But, you know, the track record, the map, it's there. And we need to emulate that. And we need to adjust it to our purposes if we're going to ultimately be successful. And with that, I will close.
Thank you so much, Daniel. I just want to express my gratitude to Move to Amend, to the affiliates that are on this call, and in line with what you said there. Activism, it's a muscle. Democracy, it's a muscle. It's one that we need to grow and exercise, and we hope that you will utilize these tools to help the members of your community step into their courage, step into their power, and find a sense of common purpose, a sense of meaning in their lives, by wrenching our country away from these corporate power grabs to manifest the society that we deserve. And protest alone is not going to be enough. It's going to take campaigns. But as we've seen with the TPP, it was a free trade agreement that was all but inevitable, and resistance to it was, you know, impossible. But we denied them that opportunity. We faced off with the most powerful corporate interests in the globe, and we won. And we can do the same here with overturning Citizens United. We can do the same here with getting the nefarious influence of money out of our politics. We can win, but it's going to take all of us, and we hope that these tools become an invaluable asset to your organizing. Eric out.
This is Jessica. I'll echo all of that. Thank you so much. Thanks to Backbone Campaign, and thanks to Eric and Daniel for being on tonight. Thanks to everyone who showed up. And if you have questions, get in touch with us, call the office. And of course, there'll be more on this to come. And we'll let you know about those dates for the upcoming webinar series. And one final ask is, before you go, when the meeting ends, you will be prompted to fill out a quick survey just to let us know how the audio worked out and how you liked the webinar. Helps us make these things a little better. So I'd be grateful if you filled that out. And thanks everyone so much. Go team. Have a great night, everybody.
Bye.